Hey everyone, ready to dive into the world of EV charging?
Always ready for an electrifying conversation.
We're dissecting a report today called Charging Infrastructure for Electric Vehicles and Fleets 2025-2035. It's by IDTechEx, and it's packed with data and insights.
Yeah, it's a really deep dive into the trends shaping the EV charging world, not just scratching the surface.
Exactly. So let's paint a picture of where things stand globally. When it comes to the sheer number of chargers, who's leading the charge, so to speak?
You might be surprised to hear this, but China is way ahead. I mean, they have a whopping 72% of all the public chargers in the world.
72%. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a staggering number. By the end of 2023, they'll have something like 2.726 million charging points in China alone. To put that in perspective, the US only has about 5%.
Wow. So they're not just dabbling in EVs, they're going all in.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're really committed to building a whole EV ecosystem. But where does that leave the U.S.? The report mentioned some interesting developments there as well.
Right. While the US is lagging behind in terms of the total number of chargers, they are rapidly catching up when it comes to DC fast chargers. In 2023, get this, they actually installed more DC fast chargers than the slower level 1 and level 2 AC chargers combined.
Interesting. So it's like a race to offer the fastest charging experience possible. What's driving this emphasis on speed in the U.S.?
I think it's likely a combination of things. People hate waiting around for hours for their cars to charge, especially if they're on a road trip. And for the industry as a whole, by making charging faster, they can attract a wider range of customers and hopefully accelerate EV adoption.
Makes sense. It seems like the faster you can charge, the faster we can all go electric. Before we move on to Europe, though, I have to ask about this NACS connector I keep hearing about.
Yeah.
Is it really going to become the dominant connector in the U.S., like the report suggests?
It's certainly looking that way, yeah.
Yeah.
With so many major automakers adopting it, it's hard to imagine it not becoming the standard.
Okay, so let's shift gears and head over to Europe. What's the EV charging scene like over there?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. They have a decent amount of chargers overall, but they're not evenly distributed. Over half of the chargers are concentrated in just 3 countries: Netherlands, Germany, and France.
So you might want to plan your charging stops carefully if you're on a European road trip.
Definitely, especially if you're venturing outside of those 3 countries.
Now, the report mentions that Germany is leading the way in Europe when it comes to DC fast charging. Is this a sign that the rest of Europe is also headed in the direction of faster charging?
It's quite possible. Germany is often a trendsetter in the automotive industry, so their focus on DC fast charging could very well signal a broader shift across the European market.
Okay, so we have China building a massive charging network, the U.S. racing toward faster charging options, and Germany leading the charge in Europe, as it were. It sounds like the global charging landscape is becoming increasingly competitive. But beyond the race for charger numbers, let's talk about the technology behind these charging stations. The report dives into 2 main types of setups: all-in-one systems and distributed systems. Can you break those down for us?
Sure. Think of all-in-one units, kind of like those self-service kiosks you see everywhere these days. They're compact, easy to install, and relatively inexpensive. But just like a kiosk, they have limitations in terms of power output and how many cars they can charge simultaneously.
So they're great for smaller deployments, but not ideal for high-traffic areas. What about distributed systems? What makes them different?
Imagine a power grid designed specifically for charging, and that's essentially what a distributed system is. They use separate power modules that can be scaled up to handle many more cars and deliver way more power.
So it's like the difference between, say, a food truck and a full-blown restaurant kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
Distributed systems sound powerful, but I imagine they come with a heftier price tag.
True, they require a larger upfront investment and more complex planning, but for locations with heavy charging needs, like busy highway rest stops, they offer much more value in the long run.
Okay, so as demand for high-power charging increases, we can expect to see more of these distributed systems popping up. It's fascinating how the technology is evolving to keep up with the growing demand for EVs. Now, let's dive a bit deeper into the components that actually make these charging stations tick. The report gets into some nitty-gritty details about power modules and thermal management, which might sound a bit technical, but are actually really important for understanding how these systems work.
Absolutely. They're the unsung heroes of the charging world. One of the biggest trends we're seeing in power modules is that charger manufacturers are starting to produce them in-house.
So they're not just buying ready-made parts, they're actually designing and building these modules themselves. Why is that?
Control.
Yeah.
By making the power modules themselves, they can optimize them for efficiency and power density. Plus, it helps reduce costs.
So it's a win-win. They get better performance and potentially lower costs.
Exactly. And we're also seeing a trend towards higher power modules, which means even better efficiency.
Okay, bigger modules, more power, more efficiency. But all that power must generate a ton of heat, right?
Yeah.
How do they keep these high-powered systems from overheating?
Thermal management is critical. As the power levels increase, you absolutely need to have effective cooling systems to prevent overheating. And for high-power chargers, liquid cooling is becoming the go-to solution.
So instead of using fans to blow air over the components, they're using liquid to draw heat away.
Exactly. It's much more effective at dissipating heat, especially at higher power levels.
Makes sense. What kind of liquid are they using?
The most common coolant is a mixture of water and glycol. It's readily available, relatively inexpensive, and works really well.
Interesting. Are there any other innovative approaches to thermal management they're using?
There's a bit of a debate right now about the best way to cool the connection point where the cable plugs into the car. Some manufacturers are using active cooling, which means they're using pumps to circulate liquid coolant through the connector.
Ah, so keeping it cool on contact.
Right. Others prefer passive cooling, which relies on materials with high thermal conductivity to naturally dissipate the heat.
So active cooling is more effective, but more complex, while passive cooling is simpler, but might not be enough for extreme conditions.
Exactly. It really depends on the specific charger and the environment it's operating in.
All this talk about power and cooling is the perfect segue to what might be the most exciting development in EV charging, megawatt charging.
Absolutely. It's the next frontier, and it has the potential to completely change the charging experience.
So what is megawatt charging and how does it work?
It's exactly what it sounds like, delivering power to a vehicle at a rate of 1 megawatt or more. To put that in perspective, most DC fast chargers today top out around 350 kilowatts. Megawatt charging could significantly reduce charging times.
But are there any roadblocks to making megawatt charging a reality?
There are a few. Currently, the cables and connectors just aren't designed to handle the massive currents involved in megawatt charging. We need more robust cables and connectors that can handle that kind of power.
So it's not just about building megawatt-capable chargers. We also need to make sure the cables and connectors are up to the task. What else needs to happen for megawatt charging to become mainstream?
Standardization. We need a universal connector and communication protocol so that any megawatt charger can work with any EV. Luckily, there's a standard called the Megawatt Charging System, or MCS, that's currently being developed. It's expected to be finalized by the end of 2024.
Okay, so once that standard is in place, we should see megawatt charging stations popping up everywhere.
Hopefully, yeah. And this creates a huge opportunity for companies that make components for these systems. We're talking liquid-cooled cables, high-temperature connectors, and advanced power electronics. It's a whole new frontier of innovation.
All right, I am officially excited about the future of megawatt charging. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's take a little detour off the beaten path, shall we? I was particularly intrigued by the report's discussion of off-grid charging. It might sound a bit counterintuitive, but it's an important aspect of the EV charging landscape.
It's crucial for the future of EV charging. Essentially, off-grid charging is about powering EVs using sources that aren't connected to the traditional power grid.
So things like solar panels, wind turbines, that sort of thing.
Exactly. It's about making EV charging possible in areas where the grid is unreliable or even non-existent. Imagine bringing EV charging to remote areas or places that have been hit by natural disasters.
So it's like having a self-sufficient charging oasis no matter where you are.
Right. Plus, it can reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, especially if it's powered by renewable sources. It just makes sense from a sustainability perspective.
Okay, so it's about more than just convenience. It's about creating a more resilient and environmentally friendly charging infrastructure. Now, the report points to hydrogen as the dominant technology in the off-grid charging market. Why is that?
Hydrogen fuel cells have a couple of big advantages. First, they can store a lot of energy in a relatively small space. Second, they can be refueled very quickly. And both of those things are really important for off-grid applications where you might not have a lot of space or time.
So hydrogen is currently in the lead, but are there any other contenders on the horizon?
Battery energy storage systems, also known as BESS, are becoming increasingly popular. These systems can store energy generated from renewables like solar or wind, and then release it to charge EVs.
So it's like having a giant battery pack that's charged up by nature. Pretty cool.
It is. The future of off-grid charging is wide open right now with lots of different technologies vying for a spot in the market. It's exciting to watch it unfold.
Wow, we have covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the global charging landscape, the inner workings of charging stations, the race for faster charging, and even ventured off the grid. But we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to unpack and explore.
There really is. The EV charging world is incredibly dynamic and constantly evolving.
It's a wild ride, and we're strapped in for more. Join us soon for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll continue to unravel the exciting and impactful world of EV charging.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back to our exploration of all things EV charging. Last time we journeyed through the global charging landscape, dug into the tech behind those stations, and even took a look at off-grid charging. But the innovations don't stop there, right?
Not even close. This IDTechEx report has so much more to offer. There are a couple of other technologies that really caught my eye. Mobile DC chargers, for one. It seems a little contradictory, don't you think? Mobile and DC fast charging, what are those all about?
Yeah, it might seem counterintuitive. But picture this, you're at a huge outdoor concert or a festival, and you need to provide charging for EVs. You can't exactly install permanent chargers just for a temporary event, right?
I see where you're going with this.
That's where mobile DC chargers come in. They're essentially portable, fast-charging units that can be deployed anywhere they're needed.
So like a rapid response team for EV charging. Pretty cool. What kind of situations are they typically used for?
Besides events, they're also invaluable in emergencies. Say there's a natural disaster or a power outage that knocks out the regular charging infrastructure. Mobile DC chargers can be deployed to provide that essential charging service until the grid's back up and running.
So they're like a lifeline for EV drivers in those situations.
Yeah.
What about their power capabilities? Are they as powerful as those fixed DC fast chargers we talked about?
Not quite as powerful as the big guys, no, but they still pack a punch. Some of the mobile DC chargers can deliver up to 50 kilowatts of power.
50 kilowatts. That's pretty impressive for a portable unit. It sounds like mobile chargers could play a key role in expanding charging access and offering more flexibility.
Definitely. They're a testament to how adaptable and innovative the EV charging industry has become.
Absolutely. Now, another technology that caught my attention was DC wall boxes. How are those different from the regular AC wall boxes most people are familiar with?
It all comes down to the type of current they provide. DC wall boxes, as the name suggests, deliver direct current or DC power straight to the vehicle. Traditional wall boxes, on the other hand, supply alternating current, AC power.
Got it. So what's the advantage of having a DC wall box at home?
Speed. DC charging is much faster than AC charging, especially for those EVs with larger batteries. Think about it, you could potentially fully charge your EV overnight, even if you have a really long commute.
Now that's appealing. But I imagine DC wall boxes probably cost more than regular AC ones, right?
They do have a higher upfront cost, yeah. But for some EV owners, the faster charging and that extra convenience might be worth it. And as the technology matures and production ramps up, we should see those prices come down.
So they might become more and more common as people realize the benefits. And especially with more EVs being designed with 800-volt architectures, which allow for even faster DC charging, I could see DC wall boxes becoming the norm.
I agree. It's like having your own personal fast charging station right in your garage.
Exactly. Okay, last one on my list. Battery buffered chargers. I'll admit the name sounds a bit intimidating. Can you break it down for us and explain why they're important?
They're actually a really smart solution to a big challenge with DC fast charging, the impact it can have on the electrical grid.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me about this grid impact issue.
Well, DC fast chargers, especially the high power ones, draw a lot of electricity from the grid. And when you have several of them all charging at the same time, it can put a lot of stress on the local grid.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and that can lead to things like voltage drops, brownouts, or even blackouts if the grid isn't strong enough to handle it.
So it's like trying to fill a swimming pool with a garden hose. The system just can't keep up. So how do battery buffered chargers help with this?
Imagine them as a buffer or a shock absorber for the grid. They have a built-in battery pack that sits between the charger and the grid. This battery can slowly charge up from the grid, spreading out that energy demand over time.
So instead of gulping down a ton of power all at once, it just sips it gradually, storing it up.
Right. And then when an EV needs a quick charge, the battery can discharge very rapidly, sending that high-powered DC current to the car without stressing the grid.
That's pretty clever. It's like having a reservoir that can release a controlled burst of water when needed. A brilliant way to make DC fast charging more grid-friendly. Are these battery buffered chargers widely available yet?
They're not as common as regular DC fast chargers yet, but they're gaining popularity, especially in areas where grid capacity is a concern. As the demand for fast charging continues to grow, I think we'll see a lot more of these battery buffered chargers being installed.
It's amazing how they're finding innovative solutions to these challenges and paving the way for a more sustainable and electrified transportation system. So we've got mobile DC chargers for flexibility, DC wall boxes for fast charging at home, and battery buffer chargers for protecting the grid. It seems like every part of the EV charging experience is being reimagined. What other trends are shaping the future of this industry?
One of the most exciting developments is the integration of EV charging with something called the smart grid. It's about making the whole charging process more intelligent and interconnected.
Okay, smart grid integration. I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
Imagine a charging system that not only delivers power but can also communicate with the grid, your home, and your EV. That's essentially what smart charging is all about.
So it's like having a personal charging assistant that takes care of everything behind the scenes, making sure you get the most efficient and cost-effective charge possible.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Smart charging systems can look at things like energy prices, grid demand, and even your own charging preferences to figure out the best time to charge your EV.
Wow. So it's not just about charging, it's about charging smarter. Are there any real-world examples of how this is being used today?
Absolutely. Some utility companies are offering something called time of use rates, which means the price of electricity varies depending on the time of day. Smart charging systems can take advantage of these rates by charging your car when electricity is cheaper.
So not only are you getting a full charge, you're getting the best deal on electricity too. That's awesome. What else can smart charging do?
It can also integrate with renewable energy sources. So your car could be charged using solar or wind power when it's available, further reducing your carbon footprint.
So it's not just about convenience, it's about making the whole process more sustainable. This is really impressive stuff.
It is. And then there's vehicle to grid, or V2G technology, which allows EVs to send power back to the grid when needed.
Wait, so my car could actually become a power source for the grid?
Exactly. Smart charging systems manage this two-way flow of energy, making sure your car is charged when you need it, while also supporting the grid during those peak demand times.
So we're not just talking about charging cars anymore. We're talking about using them to create a more resilient and sustainable energy system for everyone.
Precisely. It's a perfect example of how technology can address both individual needs and larger societal goals.
Okay, I'm convinced. Smart charging is the way to go.
It's definitely a game changer.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've learned about the global charging landscape, the tech behind it all, the innovations like mobile chargers, DC wall boxes, battery-buffered chargers, and now smart charging. And we haven't even touched on everything yet.
There's still so much to explore. The world of EV charging is incredibly dynamic and constantly changing.
Well, we'll be back soon to dive even deeper into this fascinating topic. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll tackle things like megawatt charging, the challenges of scaling charging infrastructure, and the impact of V2X technology. And we're back for the final leg of our EV charging deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from the global charging landscape to the ins and outs of the technology itself to the rise of smart charging. But we left off on a bit of a cliffhanger last time, talking about megawatt charging.
Megawatt charging is a real game changer. It's all about delivering a megawatt or more of power to an EV, which means significantly faster charging times. We could be talking about adding hundreds of miles of range in just a few minutes.
That sounds amazing. But before we all get too excited, are there any challenges to actually implementing megawatt charging on a large scale?
Yeah, there are some hurdles. One of the biggest is the infrastructure. Existing power grids might not be able to handle the huge demand that comes with megawatt charging. Imagine a scenario where multiple cars are all plugged into megawatt chargers at the same time. That's a ton of power.
Yeah, that's like trying to power a whole city block with a single household outlet.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with that? How do we make sure the grid can keep up?
It's going to take a multifaceted approach. Upgrading the grid infrastructure is obviously important, but we also need to explore other solutions like energy storage and smart grid technologies to help distribute and manage that power more effectively.
So it's not just about building bigger power lines, it's about making the grid smarter.
Exactly. And we also have to think about the charging stations themselves. Megawatt chargers are going to need some serious components and cooling systems to handle all that power, not to mention some top-notch safety features.
It's almost like building a mini power plant just for charging cars.
Yeah,
And what about the EVs themselves? Can they even handle that much power?
that's another piece of the puzzle. The batteries and thermal management systems in those EVs need to be able to handle megawatt charging speeds without compromising safety or the lifespan of the battery.
It seems like megawatt charging is going to require a lot of innovation across the board. The grid, the charging stations, and even the vehicles.
It's a big challenge, but the payoff could be huge. Imagine a world where charging your EV is as fast and easy as filling up your gas tank. That could really be a game changer for EV adoption.
Okay, I'm getting excited again. But let's step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture. Even with all these incredible technologies, the success of EV charging really depends on one thing: accessibility.
You're absolutely right. It's not enough to just have these amazing chargers. They need to be in the right places so people can actually use them. We have to make sure EV drivers can easily find charging stations wherever they live, work, and travel.
It's like building a network of gas stations, but for EVs. Except that instead of being clustered together, we need charging stations to be pretty much everywhere.
Exactly. We need to think beyond just highways and cities. We need charging infrastructure in rural areas, suburbs, and even more remote destinations.
So, how do we make that happen? What are some of the obstacles to building such a widespread charging network?
Cost is definitely a major factor. Building out a robust charging network requires significant investment. We need to create incentives for businesses, utilities, and even individuals to get involved and invest in this infrastructure.
So it's kind of like a team effort, with everyone working together to build this electric future. What other challenges are there?
Permitting and regulations can sometimes slow things down. We need to make it easier and faster to get these charging stations approved and up and running. And of course, we need to address the grid capacity issue and make sure the power grid can handle all these EVs plugging in.
That's a lot to tackle.
Um,
But we're making progress, right?
We are, definitely. And as we build out this charging network, we can't forget about the user experience. Nobody wants to deal with complicated apps or unreliable chargers. It has to be easy and convenient.
Right. It shouldn't feel like a chore to charge your car.
Exactly. We need intuitive interfaces, easy payment systems, and clear information about charging availability and pricing. It should be a seamless and stress-free experience.
Making it enjoyable is key. And as we create this more accessible and user-friendly charging ecosystem, there's one more exciting technology that could really shake things up: vehicle-to-everything, or V2X.
V2X is really cool because it lets EVs do so much more than just charge. They can interact with the grid, other vehicles, even buildings. It turns EVs into active participants in the energy system rather than just passive consumers.
I love that. So my EV could actually be a mobile power source that could power my house, support the grid, maybe even talk to other cars. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It's pretty futuristic. Imagine a power outage. With V2X technology, your plugged-in EV could seamlessly switch from charging to discharging, providing backup power to your house until the grid is restored.
Like a backup generator on wheels. That's amazing. Are there other things V2X can do?
Definitely. V2G, or vehicle-to-grid, is a great example. EVs can send power back to the grid during those peak demand periods, helping stabilize the grid and potentially even earning the EV owner some money.
So not only does V2X make the grid more resilient, it could actually put some cash back in your pocket. Are there any challenges to implementing V2X, though?
Standardization is crucial. We need to make sure different EV models, charging systems, and the grid infrastructure can all talk to each other. And we need to make sure those communications are secure and reliable to avoid any cybersecurity issues.
So V2X is still in its early stages, but it has the potential to revolutionize not just EV charging, but the entire energy landscape. We've really covered a lot of ground today, from the global charging landscape to the technology driving the industry and everything in between. It's clear that this is a really dynamic and exciting field.
It's incredible how much innovation is happening in the EV charging space. It's changing the way we think about transportation and energy, and it's only going to get more exciting from here.
Absolutely. It seems like the future of EV charging is very bright. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of EV charging. We hope you found it as fascinating as we did. For a deeper look into everything we've talked about, be sure to check out the full report from IDTechEx. It's called Charging Infrastructure for Electric Vehicles and Fleets 2025-2035. And for more deep dives into the technology shaping our world, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, keep those electrons flowing.
See you next time.